Another episode of Do What You Love. I'm Jeff Kirkshin, and director Steve Jawn is on with me this week. Hey, thanks for joining me.
What's up, Jeff? It's good to join you.
Well, I love this podcast because I get a chance to, we interview people on the radio all the time, but, we're only limited to so much time you can talk to a guest. We've got music to play, we've got commercials to play, but here, Director Steve and I, we met in an interview we were doing here in Philadelphia on XTU, and I said, I want to talk to this guy forever. So I was like, do you mind being on my podcast? He jumped right in and said, absolutely, and I'm glad we could make it work. To start off with the country angle, you have done some pretty incredible music videos in the country space, and that's kind of how you and my work wife, Andy Summers, kind of became friends. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. I moved to Nashville 12 years ago, but started kind of working there, or I wouldn't say working, doing work for people for free, my own project there in about 2007, 2008. So we actually had this idea of doing a TV pilot. I didn't do music videos. I've done one a long time ago for my band. I was in a band my whole life. I was in college, so they were like, you have to make a music video. So I made it for my band. I loved it. I grew up on MTV. I loved music videos, but I was always wanting to just make feature films. So I got into Entourage and Always Sunny in Philadelphia. My wife and I have been visiting Nashville a lot, and my friend Dennis McFadden and I wanted to write a TV show about these two failing writers in LA who wind up in some town. And we were going to Nashville so often. It was when it was cheap to go there. And in 05, 06, we were having these great times. So we actually wrote our TV show about Nashville, and it was called Little Hollywood. And we pitched it. We had CMT interested, then they weren't interested. I think it was a little too vulgar for them. It is definitely like a Curb Your Enthusiasm, and it wasn't country music based. It was in there, but it was about two characters who go to this town unexpectedly, kind of get stuck there, and the city changes their life. They basically lie. They're pretending that they're these hotshot producers, and they're trying to con CMT into believing them and getting their own TV pilot off to the races. So needless to say, everybody turned us down, so we made it ourselves. And when we made it ourselves, we did it independently. We got it into all kinds of film festivals. And doing that, I met a Nashville band named Sean and Hobby. And Sean Lacey has been on XTU. He is the lead singer of Sean and Hobby. He does his own stuff too. And I promised them if they let me use their music in the show, I'd make them a music video. And I did. And during our film festival screening, I met Phil Vassar's tour manager. And that is kind of how things started rolling for me in the music video world. He knew Sean and Hobby. He saw the video I made. He had questions. He worked for Phil and kind of got me rolling. And next thing you know, we moved to Nashville, and I'm making music videos and hustling and trying to get anyone at that time, even if they didn't have money or even if they just had $500 to let me film some stuff, to just kind of build my reel in the music video world. Because I realized in Nashville, unlike LA where I was trying to pitch projects and get somebody to buy my stuff, Nashville were actually paying people to do these music videos, which was neat. That's a neat thought, to actually make money. So that was kind of the beginning of my journey in the music video world, which would soon lead me to meeting a guy named Joe Hudak from Rolling Stone, who's originally a Pennsylvanian, who grew up with Andy Summers. One of the bands that I was helping, who had zero money at the time, was Old Dominion. And we made a bunch of cool little videos. When they got signed, they were able to really push me to remain as their music video director.
Wow.
Which was great, because the label was like, who is this guy? And what are these ideas? Our first video pitch was to do Back to the Future for the Break Up With Them video, which is kind of a legal nightmare licensing-wise. But that video was really where I got a call from Joe Hudak, and he just loved it, and he was so excited. It's my first one on television that said director Steve Jawn, which he thought was going to get cut, and it didn't. And he connected me with Andy, and we were coming to Philly, and I think he gave her my number. She called me. We met up at the Kenny Chesney show. Next thing you know, I'm on the air, and now we have this wonderful relationship with Andy and with WXTU, and the support has always been amazing. And thank you for the recent support.
Oh,
it was fun being on the air with you.
Well, I feel like a lot of guests I talk to are in a point in their career where they're not quite in the startup part of it. You know, they've found success in what they love to do, and that's what the podcast is all about. But I feel like a lot of people come to this podcast to learn and to maybe believe that, hey, you are in the startup, but at one point you can be successful. So the thought of you going to Nashville, like, and just saying, can somebody pay me to do something, please? Like, I'll do it for $20 or $500 or whatever you can do. And now you have the 1010 Creative, you're making movies, you're making music, you're doing so much of what you wanted to do. For you, do you look back at those days and think, man, I was gullible? Or are you proud? I would be so proud of you then for really putting yourself out there and saying, I got to follow this dream.
So I look back at that time, and I wasn't 22 and out of college when we came to Nashville. I was, 33, 34. I had a 1.5-year-old. In LA, we had some fun jobs. My wife had a great job, but she had gotten laid off. We had been working with Sean and Hobby Band a lot. Sean became my best friend. He kept pushing us to move to Nashville. And we had a trip there like a couple months before we moved, and we really did feel something. I was working, doing random production jobs, chasing coffee, pitching my show. Like, I was making all this stuff and doing my own thing on the side. Wasn't an official LLC yet. I was just doing it. And it's the same stuff I did in Philly. I made a bunch of short films while I lived in Philly. I made a documentary, and that's how I met the producer that gave me a job in LA. But that was just like doing a lot of schlepper work. And my wife and I both experienced that, and we were kind of over it. So we said, screw it, we're going to Nashville, which was that main line in our TV show, Little Hollywood. There's a bathroom philosopher. He's like a cowboy that lingers in the bathroom. His line was, screw it, I'm going to Nashville. But we really said, screw it, we're going to Nashville, and started over, Jeff. We didn't know what we were going to do for money. We just rolled with whatever we had. We stayed at Sean Lacey's house for maybe 2-3 weeks. And then a friend of ours was on tour at Vertical Horizon, and he gave us his house for like 2-3 weeks. And then we finally got our own place. But I worked at a bar. I was 34 years old, and I started bar backing. And my wife, fortunately, started working with a app company, a construction app. Actually, that's from a project management app called Lean Kit. So that was a saving grace for us. It gave us health insurance and things like that. But the first couple of months there were tough. You know, you're headed into your mid-30s, and that was where we were like, what are we doing? But what was available to me, and she knew that, and she's always supported me and pushed me and believed in my talent. She not only believes in my talent, she helps us make these videos and do things. But in Nashville, have you been there? You've been there, right?
Oh yeah.
Or no?
It's fantastic.
Like you know, Whiskey Jam was just starting. It wasn't really anything yet. There was a couple other writers rounds, and there was a lot of things at Third and Lindsley. And if I went somewhere with Old Dominion and I had my camera, or with Sean Lacey and I had my camera, people would just see me and start talking to me. And sometimes the people were people from labels. And it was just it felt, yes, it did feel crazy at times, but I also know if you hustle and if you put yourself out there, you're going to be seen and somebody's going to need you for something. And if I just would have said, forget it, I probably wouldn't have shot anything for Old Dominion or Phil Vassar, and it would have been terrible. Who knows? I'd probably still be bar backing, I mean, I'm going to do what I got to do to pay for my children,
Right. You bring up a good point there too, is like, it seems like in the creative field, especially in your career too, you could say it was a domino effect. This gig, this video led to this video, which led to this video, which led to this person meeting. And it just goes to show, like, there's always somebody watching. There's always somebody there. So, like, you got to put your best foot forward, or else, if you're a jerk on set of, whatever you're working on, they say, well, I don't want to work with that guy. He sounds terrible. And then, that connection's not made. So, like, bravo to you for, like, even as small as some gigs might have seemed when you first got to Nashville, whatever it might have been, it led to what has been just incredible for you and a dream. And the 1010 Creative was is what it is today because of that hustle. Tell us a little bit about, what you do and what projects you're working on now on kind of a bigger scale, because, I feel like you're one of the busiest people I know when I follow on social and see what you're doing. You're always doing something fun.
Yeah, we're trying our best, and it's funny because we'll talk about the hustle. And one thing I will back up and say, I do give Phil Vassar a ton of credit for all of this, because he had left his label when we got hired, and we did a real sensitive video, the first video, but the couple of things that we did after, one being Santa's Gone Hollywood, were the wackiest ideas, because I wasn't really a country guy. I like a lot of older country and rock and hip hop, and I love those videos, and of course the old 90s videos, In Excess and Pearl Jam were my favorite. But that dude was like, cool, let's do it. Like, and I think that even helped me get a couple of the indie artists that I worked with. There's a station down there called Lightning 100, and I worked with a couple of smaller Americana artists, and they had some money, but the Phil Vassar videos were the ones they would call and say, that was hilarious, and we really like that. That's what you do with a country artist. And I think the same thing with Old Dominion. I think, thankfully, they didn't want to do anything normal, and I felt at that time particularly, we were pushing the envelope and kind of trying to make country videos, not just the artists in a barn or at a cornfield, which were a lot of them, and I'm not putting them down, but that was just the norm. It was a very safe moment before 2011, 2012, when I think the country artists started trying some stuff that pop artists were doing. But I give Phil a lot of credit for that, and it helped us brand 1010. We weren't the guys that just showed up and made things look pretty. There's a lot of guys that do that. We weren't a company that wanted to do the basic. We wanted to kill ourselves to make these videos. So, and you're talking about 1010 today and what we're working on. The hustle that I talked to you earlier is still going on now. That's the one thing. I don't want to say it stinks, because you always feel like, once we have a major video and all that, everything's going to be fine. But I think where a lot of people fail is you just expect the work to come to you, and that's not always the case. I think for us, why we're busy and why you see us doing things is because I am constantly trying to remind everybody that we're here, and there is now a lot more. There's a lot more people in Nashville. There's a lot more directors, camera guys, people doing this work. So when we came there, I don't feel like there was as many. So we're lucky to have gotten in when we did, but you still have to give the reminder, like, hey, we're still here too, and remember all the awesome work we did together.
Yeah, and I think you're part of that creative process too. It's not just filming the pretty stuff. You're part of thinking outside the box. And I think that's a lot of people, myself included, quite frankly, don't really realize how much, and I don't mean to be rude, but how much a director can influence just the complete vision from planning down to execution, down to editing, down to, production. So, like, it's really neat to hear that you're thinking outside the box for these big time music videos and bringing country music into a whole different world.
Yeah, well, and I kind of drifted away from your question, and I apologize for that. But it's like I felt like I needed to give Phil Vassar a shout out. He really has
Oh,
been.
no doubt.
He's like our guy that I think I wouldn't be here talking to you probably. We might be talking, but it'd be at CMA Fest, and I'd be filling beers up into the ice coolers.
Right.
But right now, what we're working on, which is what you asked, is a feature film that we've been working on since before the pandemic through 2018 on a script. We had this one script that was going to happen. A lot of issues happened. So we kind of changed the vibe of the script and kind of combined two stories together. Do this work all through 2019. We had a couple of great meetings with some investors in like January of 2020. Went out to Sundance, had the first time of all the years. I've been to other film festivals. I never went there, met great people. And then we hit a wall, a tornado hit Nashville, and then a week later, COVID locked us all down. So the good thing of the lockdown was that we got to really work on the script, and we're trying to still think, all right, if we get out of this, when can we do this safely? When can we make it happen? And in January, we started filming in Wildwood, New Jersey. We kind of broke the shoot up because it is independent. We raised some money. We put some of our own into it. And so we shot 2 weeks in January, 2 weeks in March, and we're about to do 2 more weeks in 1 week in September, 1 week in October, because in the film there's a little bit of a transition of weather and time. So we'll be editing that project, which right now, currently, the working title is Gone Like the Night.
I'm so excited to see this feature film. Is this, pardon me, is this the one that also features your daughter in it?
It is, yeah.
So you are directing your teenage daughter?
Yeah, she's not 13 yet, so she's 12.
Got it.
She's about to be, though, October 1st. So,
and
yeah,
how is that? You and I talked about this. And I want to make sure that the Do What You Love audience can hear, because it fascinated me. Father-daughter, you've got that relationship, that love, but then now you're on a professional set, and you're the director, and she's an actress, and that must present some fun, but also some challenges.
Yeah, it was one of the coolest things that we'll probably ever share. Hopefully we get to do it again, but it really was the coolest thing we ever shared, but it was also one of the most challenging things we ever did together, because she was 12 going on 13. She's going through things. We had to, she only shot a couple hours at a time, but she still had to, go to a room and still had to be down there on the location and kind of be ready. And we would tell her, all right, you have to sleep these 6 hours. We'll get up, we'll shoot this scene, and tell that to any 12-year-old that they have to go take a nap or go lay down. So it didn't happen. So there was days of crankiness, and then all of a sudden she'd just snap out of it and then come up to me and say, sorry, I don't know why. I thought I was being weird, and I'll be okay. Let's do the scene. I know why you were being weird. I don't want to talk about hormones and everything yet, but it was like she's literally turning into a teenager,
right,
in front of my eyes and in front of the camera. So there were some wild things, and even recently we were talking about it, and she talked about some of the moments where she cried or was afraid to do the scene, and she goes, I don't know why was I being like that? It's unexplainable. It's just your body, your brain, everything's shifting, you're changing. And
I think for her to have the maturity to sit back and say to herself and say out loud and say to you, like, I don't know what was going on with me there. You know how many adults should probably have that idea in their mind? Like, I wish I could, every once in a while not be so hard-headed and say to my wife, you know what? I don't know why I said that. I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm not being myself. Give me a second. I think we all wish we could be like that in a minute. That shows massive maturity. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, she was great, and she's great, and I couldn't be prouder. We had this one moment, I think I told you when we met. We have this 1968 Pontiac Le Mans in the movie, and we've had a bunch of old cars in our music videos, but our kids never really got to jump in and enjoy them. They'd see us drive off to the video shoot in it. She had to be in the car a lot during the filming, but one night we had to take the car from Philly, from Delco to Wildwood, and so like the lead actor had his car, and it ended up being like, I'm gonna drive this car, and I told her, you can get in the other car with the crew, or you can come with me, and she did come with me, and to take this 2-hour ride down the back roads through Jersey down to Wildwood, and we just had an AM radio, and so it was funny looking at all the channels, and just maybe the greatest conversation that her and I ever had. That's something that, if that's the only thing that came from this movie, which it's not going to be, but if it is, that to me is a movie unto itself.
Oh. Well, I mean, I think with you being such a creative person and such a forward thinker, I hear another movie plot right in there. I see that as a movie itself, Father's fixing up an old car, needs to drive it across to wherever. Daughter comes in, coming into her teenage years. Maybe they, not your case, but maybe they're having a tough relationship at the time, and this whole trip, surrounds a whole bonding moment. I mean, I think that so much of what I love about film and what I love about, the movie industry are the characters that these actors and actresses come alive. And a lot of the times we don't give enough credit to the writing of that, because these characters come alive on a page first. And for you, through the writing of this movie, how much, because I've always been curious, how much has it changed in your mind? I know this is kind of a deep question, from when you were putting pen on paper, so to speak, to when you're seeing it through the lens of a camera. Is it completely what you thought it wasn't? This is exactly how I thought it was going to be. Or how much has changed in that process?
When you're shooting something independently, which I've always had to do when it comes to these projects, I try to not marry the exact vision that I had while writing. I do try to, I definitely can see the motel in the movie when I'm writing it, and it looks a little different. It might look a little bit like a motel in Nashville down the road from us, and a little bit like a motel in Jersey. I can see something, and I always can see the location. But when it comes go time, then you have to start picking out your places. We don't have $20 million to say you have to build this motel exactly, and I do look forward to that day. But so sometimes I think, yes, some of it changes, but some of it also, there was moments in the movie that looked exactly like how I was feeling they were going to. We did get a motel that was pretty close to what the idea was, and maybe even cooler. So in some cases, I think the scenes looked even better than I could have even imagined if I had the money to build a set. And then in other cases, it's like, okay, this isn't what I thought, but maybe this is better. And then it just becomes what it is.
That's incredible to me.
You have to be open. I'm open to it, is what I'm saying. And again, I'm a music video director, so sometimes, we pitch these ideas to the labels, and they're like, that's great, but you can't film it there because it's $20,000 to rent the place. So we got this other place for $5,000. So you got to kind of lower your bar, but also think, how can we take the $5,000 looking place and still make it look great, even if it's a little different from what we put on paper?
Well, I think it makes you gain perspective, too, because, when that time does come, when you're working with Christopher Nolan money, you can say to yourself, hey, okay, is this really worth it to spend $500,000 to build what I want? Or can I do it for $20,000 here? Because I've had to make these sacrifices before, and just because I have the opportunity or have the money, is it worth it in this moment to keep that vision alive? Or as you said, sometimes it's even better than what you had imagined when you were putting it on the page.
And that's the fun of it. We use the movie theater, and I'm just using this movie because it's what we're working on now. And we wrote there's like a little movie theater where the singer hides out in. And we're in Wildwood. We were thinking we were going to have to find somewhere in Philly, or who knows where we'll find anything. Maybe it even had to be Nashville. We just didn't know. But lo and behold, there is a old movie theater from the 20s called the Sea Theater in Wildwood. Somebody kind of saved it in like the late 90s, early 2000s, made it kind of look cool, but it still has all the old facade, the old projector. It's really neat. And the guy that recently bought it, I think, is going to turn it into a comedy club, but he hadn't done it yet. And he was like, yeah, you guys can use it. And it's so cool. It's like it's beyond what we could have imagined. So sometimes all you got to do is just put it out there and the universe will give.
That is so neat. And I mean, I could talk to you for so long about how a movie is made, and I'm just so happy to hear, because you said at the very beginning, feature films, that's what you always wanted to do. And here you are with this one you've been working on seemingly for, 4 years, since 2018, you said?
Yeah, when the story and script started coming to life.
Right. And that's the thing for you, that was the start. This is when you first had the dream. It's, maybe you haven't been shooting for 4 years, and then we had COVID there, who screwed all of Steve Jawn's plans up. But you stuck with it. So you're filming. Do you have a film wrap? Like, do you know when you're gonna be able to wrap and then get into the editing room, or is that kind of still down the road?
No. We're starting. So the post process is kind of started. We haven't fully edited everything together, but we're doing all the technical things. We've also had the last 3 months of our lives, my personal life has had major changes. So dealing with that, the timing's actually been good. So a good friend of mine is a post-production guy. He is from Delco, but he lives in LA, and he's doing all the things that you don't want to do unless that's what you live for: syncing audio, creating proxy files, things that are just a nightmare. And he's the most patient guy on the planet. So he's been doing that. We're moving that along. I could have started cutting it together, but since we have these last 2 weeks, I just feel better when I have everything on the plate, opposed to starting it. Now there's little things that along the way and we've done it with music videos. We've shot it and go, we need something, go out and do it. And that might happen here too, but there's these 2 scenes that we're going to do in September and October. To me, feels like I got to feel that sense of completion, and then we can move forward with the edit. So it'll be another year, and probably about this time next year when we're having something to screen. So there's no one more year. What'd you say? 4 years? So we're at 5 years here,
Wow. Well, let us know at XTU. We'll come out for the big screening. We'll bring our XTU Nation with us, and we'll be able to show up and support. I think that would be really, really, really special.
I want you guys to cameo in it. There's a big thing with the radio throughout this, so get your close-up ready. We'll talk off the podcast, but I want you and Andy to definitely do something in it, because there's a lot of radio personality throughout the whole film. And it's the secret of the film, which I'll tell you off the air. It's our M. Night kind of secret. But so I have your, like I told Andy, have your people talk to my people.
Right. Well,
let's make something happen. I do want to represent Philly.
Yeah. Well, and you are a Philly guy, and I want, for those that listen in Philly, they might be like, Director Steve Jawn, that's cool. And other people might be like, oh, that's his name. And this is one of my favorite stories that you told me the day we met about how you got your name. So take it for, obviously, the Philly people probably have an idea of what's happening. But a lot of other people who didn't grow up around here or didn't grow up on the East Coast have no idea what a John is necessarily. Take us through how you got this name that now has become, everything that you are and on everything that you do?
Well, I heard the word John for the first time as a kid in Darby, PA, where my dad is from, where our family business was. And John is Philly slang for anything. This shirt's a John. My films are John's. So I always loved the word. And we were talking about music videos in that time where I came to Nashville, where the directors, I feel like in pop music and mostly rock, they were owning their movie. They were owning their music video, kind of making it a little movie, where the world of MTV was gone and they got rid of the little corner credits, right? So your director title's gone. But I loved seeing like Miley Cyrus's director put her name up on the screen. And I hadn't seen that really happen in country, so I was like, I'm doing this. And I love Spike Lee. Spike Lee always says his movies are a Spike Lee joint. I got the nickname Director Steve because our producing partner and writing partner and great guy in our life, Steve Molyneux, is not known as Steve Molyneux in Philly and Delco. He is Lawyer Steve, and everybody knows him as Lawyer Steve. And so when we started hanging out in Nashville together, this bar manager looked at us one night and said, Lawyer Steve and Director Steve. And I bought the domain, and it kind of became my business card because I really didn't want to buy business cards anymore. So I had Steve at directorsteve.com, which still comes to me if you did email me there. And we were talking about hustling with people, and they would say, I need a video. And I just say, Steve at Director Steve, and it really worked. But when I put my first video out, they all called me Director Steve, and I just wanted to make my own title, and it was A Director Steve Jawn. The Jawn being the music video.
Right, it's a thing.
Well, at that time, was it 2015? Break Up With Them comes out. Nobody in country knows what a John is, and mostly no one else outside of Philly knows what a John is. And I think we had Rolling Stone, Entertainment Weekly, a couple other great publications. The most exciting day of your life when you're getting your write-up about your video and it's positive. And they just kept saying, Old Dominion's video director, Steve Jawn. And that was all over the place. And I got a lot of texts that morning from my friends in Delco who were just laughing, going like, they think you're really named Steve Jawn. And they were like, you have to just, this has to be your name now.
Got to ride the wave.
And, well, then other people in Nashville started calling me Steve Jawn to the point where we went to our first CMT Awards. We got the Break Up With Them had 2 nominations, and Danny and I walked in and tried to pick up our tickets, and they were like, we don't have you on the list, and gave them my license, and then eventually I was like, is it under John by chance? And they looked it up, and it was, but then there was a problem because that's not my name on my license.
Right.
So I think Old Dominion's manager had to literally come out and say, that's him. Like, I got it tattooed on my arm, so, and everything was good, and we went. We did not win the award. That would have been better, but that was the birth of Steve Jawn, and I just kept rolling with it. And to me, I like it because it's representative of Philly and where I grew up. And my first job, I did dishes at a nursing home, and the guys that trained me used the word John so much that I had no idea what any of the equipment was actually called, or any of the things that held the dishes, or any of the trays. They were just all Johns. So when I hear the word, it does kind of take me back to being in the kitchen at a nursing home and reminding yourself that this could be the rest of your life, which there's nothing wrong with if that's what you want to do. That was certainly not what I wanted to do, but it was good because it's a hard-working job. It taught me to get my own money for the first time in my life, but also to keep focused on what you really want to do. So, John forever.
John forever. Humble beginnings. Director Steve Jawn. Thank you for joining Do What You Love, and we hope to see you back in the Philly area soon, and I gotta go update my IMDb page. I have 1 credit on it. Let's make it 2, my friend.
Update it. Well, and let's get back together. We talked about, the one thing I missed was Twitty and Lynn, the Conway Twitty and Loretta Lynn's grandkids that we talked about on XDU are going to be coming to Pennsylvania. So why don't we all get together, hang out, see some old school country music by Fresh Blood.
I love that.
And start getting our contracts together for your movie appearance.
Yes, sir. Director Steve,
Jeff,
thank
you're
you
the
so
best.
much.
Thank you.